Well, for this video, I'm going to be looking at the new James Bond, No Time to Die. I'm a bit late for this, a couple of weeks after it came out, but I've been a little busy as we've just moved house. Now, I'll try not to give any spoilers for this, but I know a lot of people have been upset by the ending. I actually rather like the ending, so I've got a different perspective. But I think it's important to point out before we start that this is a direct sequel to the previous James Bond outing, Spectre. And as I hadn't seen this for quite a few years, I found this rather confusing to watch. So I went back, watched Spectre, then watched this again, and it all made perfect sense. So keep watching and let's discuss this spectacular James Bond, No Time to Die. As I mentioned, No Time to Die is a direct sequel to Spectre, and it's quite clever how this has been done. Barbara Broccoli in the extras does speak about the whole series with Daniel Craig all following on one after the other, and there was unfinished business following Spectre. But I really was quite confused who the girl in this was, Léa Seydoux, if that's the correct pronunciation. But it was all a bit confusing, so I watched Spectre again, and then all made perfect sense, as I said. Now, if you go back to Casino Royale, which I think is one of the best Bonds ever created, Eon Productions, now run by Barbara Broccoli, they got the rights finally unravelled from the previous company that held the rights to the first Bond book, Casino Royale, and there was in fact a film called Casino Royale previously starring Peter Sellers and David Niven. It was a bit of a spoof. I've never actually managed to sit all the way through it, and it's really not my cup of tea. But anyway, Casino Royale with Daniel Craig did start a whole new timeline of Bond. And so the ending of this really shouldn't come as any surprise to anyone. It's a completely contained story, and as it says at the end of this film, James Bond will return. It's just going to be a different James Bond, and it will probably be a whole new cast. I know that when Daniel Craig took the role, they kept Dame Judi Dench in the role as M, but she's now gone, replaced by Ralph Fiennes, and I think he's superb in that role, and it would be great to keep him, so it'd be interesting to see what they do. And now that I mention him, Ben Whishaw as Q and Naomi Harris as Moneypenny, the whole cast is excellent. And in this we have got Rami Malek playing the villain, and he of course got the Oscar for playing Freddie Mercury in the Queen film Bohemian Rhapsody. He was excellent in that, and he's very good in this. Christoph Waltz played Blofeld. Try saying that after a few pints. Christoph Waltz played Blofeld in Spectre, and he returns in a sort of cameo in this, appearing in prison, sort of like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. Not quite as gruesome as that perhaps, but he's all done up and caged, and Bond goes to see him. And I like the way Daniel Craig always has that cheeky little smile, as though even though he's the worst villain in history, he still kind of likes him. He gets away with that, Daniel Craig, and it's all a bit similar really, the way he portrays Bond to the way Timothy Dalton did, who I personally feel was the best of all the Bonds, because as much as I like Daniel Craig, I think Timothy Dalton was just an exceptional actor, and I think he just tips the balance there on that basis alone. But Daniel Craig is excellent in the role of Bond, and I've liked all 5 of these films. Probably the one I've liked least has been Skyfall, which is interesting because a lot of people seem to like that the most. But anyway, I digress. This is an exceptionally spectacular Bond. Great way for Daniel Craig to go out. The action is just, well, it's just magnificent right from the opening. And you do get an explanation to Léa Seydoux' character as to a paragraph she tells Bond, or a sentence about a man coming to kill her father and he wasn't there. Well, that's the opening of this film, and so that sentence in Spectre is explained in this, and then it goes to the opening, which has got to be one of the longest Bond openings, if not the longest pre-title sequence of the lot, and he's in the Aston Martin DB5. Now, I actually prefer the Aston Martin they had. It was the DBS, wasn't it, with a sort of fastback on it that Timothy Dalton used in Living Daylights, and I think that was the best of all the Aston Martins. But I'm a child of the 70s, born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s and loving the style of all those great British cars that were appearing on the roads, not in great numbers, these limited production cars, but were appearing on our roads in the 70s and into the 80s. A couple of commenters had commented on my last video when I said I was thinking about doing a review of No Time to Die, and a couple of people did tell me that they thought this disc, the 4K disc, looked spectacular. So that was no surprise really, because you look up how this film was filmed and it seems a lot of it was shot on 35mm, which with modern fine-grained film stocks really is exceptional. But a lot of this was shot Super Panavision, it seems, so 65mm for 70mm release, and other parts of it were shot with genuine IMAX. That's 15 perforations high 70mm IMAX film, which is the genuine IMAX. You know, all these video imitations they're passing off as IMAX and claiming laser projected. Well, if you've never seen genuine 70mm film IMAX projected, you really do need to get to one of the few remaining IMAX theatres in the world, because there really is nothing like it. So a lot of this was shot on that, and presumably because when they were filming it, it was supposed to be released before the pandemic broke out. Not that anyone was expecting the pandemic, but nevertheless they were delayed, I believe, and so they didn't release it as intended. It got put back, and then COVID-19 hit, and it had been put back until late last year, late 2021. So in the end there were no 70mm or IMAX prints struck apparently, and so all we had was video projection. So presumably much like is on this 4K disc. So it is an exceptional 4K disc for that reason, because of the way it was shot. And people often get confused with cine to video transfers. They think something's gone wrong because a shot is not quite as well defined as other shots. Well, that's because of the way it was filmed on the day. If the cameraman for whatever reason has got something slightly out of focus, or it's not been aligned correctly and they've had to crop perhaps, then it's going to be out of focus on our final resulting Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray discs. And there are a few shots in this that do look slightly soft, or are not as good as other shots. But our systems all vary, and what looks great in here may not look quite so good on yours, but I think this one will, owing to all that 70mm footage. The sound is Dolby Atmos, and I know that will keep a lot of 4K enthusiasts happy. They really like to see that a film has come out in Dolby Atmos. Now obviously with this being a new film, they were always going to do it in the latest sound system, and it sounds absolutely fantastic in here on my 5.1 THX. The aspect ratio is listed as 2.39 to 1, so the normal Panavision Scope ratio. There are a series, I think, of 5 extras on the 4K disc, and I watched them all and found them really interesting, particularly the last one, which was a complete film with just a sound recording of Barbara Broccoli, Daniel Craig, and I believe the director talking about the film, and that had some really interesting information in it, well worth watching. I didn't look at the extras on the Blu-ray. I think they're all identical, but I did check the picture quality on the Blu-ray, and that too is very, very good. But you check the Blu-ray against the 4K and immediately you can see the 4K superior. HDR again, or Dolby Vision, whichever you're playing through your system. It just makes that defining difference, and you know you're watching something with more depth, and the contrast really is the one that makes the difference this time around. So would I recommend No Time to Die, the 2021 James Bond entry? Yes, I certainly would. It's a fantastic 4K disc. It looks spectacular. It sounds spectacular. It's well acted. I think everyone in it is really good. Perhaps the girl playing the new 00 agent, another film from her, and I think she'll really get into it perhaps. So thoroughly recommended from me, well worth a purchase, and to keep people like John and Mondo Chelovek happy, it's even got a slipcase. So there you go. Now, I think you probably noticed I'll be making some progress in the home cinema here in our new venue. It's not actually finished yet. I've got some bugs to iron out in the top mask, which I think I'm getting to grips with. I haven't tried putting the bottom mask on yet. That's going to require a little more dexterity and a little more cunning in using rollers, because the screen is at an angle. But the curtains are up, they need extending, and I haven't attached the motors yet, so there's still a bit more work to do, but it's getting there, so it'll be business as normal pretty soon, hopefully, once I can get this finished and the rest of the house straight. There's still quite a lot of the rest of the house that needs to be straightened. Someone's been spending too much time in this room, methinks. But anyway, until the next video, bye-bye for now.